Okay, here's the article based on the rewritten story, incorporating your requests for emotions, a new setting, a dramatic opening, and a call to action. Untitled, Sparks Fly in the Space Lanes When Prejudice Meets Power. And dramatic opening, the neon-drenched sky of Neo-Alexandria pulsed with the rhythm of 1,000,000 lives, a symphony of hovercrafts and the chatter of 1,000 alien tongues. But tonight, the vibrant tapestry of the spaceport marketplace was about to be torn by a single act of injustice. A hush fell over the crowd as Officer Krell, his face contorted in a sneer, advanced on Anya Volkov, a figure of quiet dignity amidst the bustling chaos. The air crackled with tension, a prelude to the storm that was about to erupt. Don't miss the unfolding drama. Like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more electrifying stories from the edge of the galaxy. The article body. The marketplace throbbed with life. Vendors hawked wares from 100 worlds, their voices a melodic blend of languages both familiar and strange. The aroma of exotic spices mingled with the scent of synth meat grilling on nearby stalls. Anya Volkov, a renowned intergalactic diplomat, moved through the throng, her presence radiating an aura of calm authority. She had negotiated treaties between warring star systems, brokered peace on a dozen disputed planets. But today, she was simply a traveler, seeking a moment of respite in the vibrant heart of Neo-Alexandria. Officer Krell, however, saw something different. His gaze, hardened by years of prejudice, lingered on Anya's distinctive features, the subtle markings that identified her species as Xylar, a race known for their intellectual prowess and their unwavering commitment to justice. In Krell's narrow mind, different meant dangerous. His hand instinctively moved to the stun baton at his belt, a weapon he was all too eager to use. "You there!" Krell's voice cut through the marketplace din, sharp and accusatory. "Halt! Security check!" Anya turned, her expression one of polite inquiry. "Officer?" Krell's eyes narrowed. "Identification. And state your business." Anya calmly produced her diplomatic credentials, a small, shimmering card that held the weight of interstellar law. Krell snatched it, his eyes scanning the intricate symbols with feigned scrutiny. "Diplomat, huh? Doesn't look like much to me." His tone was laced with disdain, a clear challenge to Anya's authority. The crowd around them began to stir, sensing the rising tension. Drones, the ever-present eyes of Neo-Alexandria, swiveled to capture the unfolding scene. "My credentials are in order, officer," Anya stated, her voice firm but controlled. "I am here on official business." "Official business?" Krell scoffed. "Or are you here to cause trouble like your kind always do?" The words hung in the air, heavy with prejudice. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Even in the diverse melting pot of Neo-Alexandria, such blatant discrimination was shocking. Anya's eyes flashed with anger, but she held her composure. "I will not tolerate such accusations, officer. I demand you retract your statement." "Demand?" Krell's smirk widened. "You demand? You have no rights here, Xylar. This is a human colony. You're lucky we even let you in." He took a step closer, his hand tightening on his stun baton. "Now, I'm going to ask you one more time. State your business, or you'll be spending the night in a holding cell." Anya's patience had reached its limit. "I have shown you my credentials. I have answered your questions. You have no right to detain me." "No right?" Krell laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "I have all the rights I need. I'm the law here." With a swift, brutal motion, he raised his stun baton and lunged at Anya. The crowd recoiled in horror, a wave of shock and disbelief washing over them. But Anya was ready. Years of training in the ancient Xylar martial art of Zer-Talan had honed her reflexes to razor sharpness. With a fluid movement, she sidestepped the baton, her hand flashing out to grasp Krell's wrist. The officer's eyes widened in surprise as Anya's grip tightened. He tried to pull away, but her strength was far greater than he had anticipated. With a sharp twist, she disarmed him, sending the stun baton clattering to the Durasteel floor. The crowd erupted in cheers, a chorus of support for Anya and condemnation for Krell. The drones buzzed closer, their lenses capturing every detail of the confrontation. Krell, his face flushed with anger and humiliation, lunged at Anya, his movements clumsy and desperate. But Anya was a master of Zer Tullen. She moved with effortless grace, dodging his attacks, her footwork as precise as it was mesmerizing. With a calculated sweep of her leg, she tripped Krell, sending him sprawling face first onto the ground. The cheers of the crowd intensified, a wave of jubilation washing over the marketplace. "That's what he gets!" someone shouted. "Justice for Anya!" Krell scrambled to his feet, his rage burning hotter than ever. But before he could renew his attack, 2 more security officers arrived, their faces a mixture of shock and disbelief. They had seen the footage from the drones, and they knew who Anya Volkov was. "Officer Krell!" one of them barked, his voice laced with anger. "Stand down, immediately!" Krell stared at them, his confusion evident. "What? But she attacked me." "She defended herself against your unwarranted aggression," the officer retorted. "You are under arrest for abuse of power and discrimination." The crowd roared its approval as Krell, his face a mask of disbelief and fear, was led away in handcuffs. Anya stood tall, her gaze sweeping over the faces of the crowd. "Thank you," she said, her voice resonating with strength and gratitude. "But this is not just about me. It's about standing up against prejudice, wherever it may be found. It's about ensuring that justice and equality prevail, for all species, in all corners of the galaxy." Her words sparked a fire in the hearts of those who had witnessed the events. They knew that Anya Volkov was not just a diplomat. She was a symbol of hope, a beacon of light in a galaxy often shrouded in darkness. As Anya turned to leave, a young Xylar girl, her eyes shining with admiration, approached her. "You were amazing," she whispered. "You showed them that we are not to be feared." Anya smiled, her expression softening. "We are not to be feared," she agreed. "We are to be respected. And we will earn that respect by standing together and by never backing down in the face of injustice." With those words, Anya Volkov walked away, leaving behind a marketplace transformed. The neon lights seemed to shine brighter. The air seemed to hum with a new energy. The people of Neo-Alexandria had witnessed a moment of truth, a moment that would forever change the way they saw themselves, and the way they saw the galaxy. And call to action. This is just the beginning of the story. What will happen to Officer Krell? What challenges will Anya face as she continues her fight for equality? Like, comment, and subscribe to our channel to find out. Your support helps us bring more stories of courage and hope from across the cosmos. All right, let's craft a suspenseful and dramatic paragraph based on the idea of overstepping authority from the rewritten story, stretching it to 2,000 words while adding suggestive situations and building tension. Paragraph. The cold, metallic hum of the detention bay echoed through Anya's senses, a stark contrast to the vibrant chaos of the marketplace she had just left. Officer Krell, his face now a mask of simmering rage and wounded pride, had dragged her through the labyrinthine corridors of the spaceport security hub, his grip bruising her arm. He shoved her into the stark, sterile cell, the heavy door hissing shut behind her, sealing her in the oppressive silence. The air thrummed with unseen energy, a palpable tension that spoke of the unseen eyes watching her every move. Anya knew she was being monitored, every breath, every flicker of her expression, recorded and analyzed. She closed her eyes, attempting to center herself, to find the inner calm that had served her so well in countless diplomatic crises. But the oppressive atmosphere of the cell, the weight of Krell's unjustified aggression, gnawed at her composure. She felt a prickle of unease, a sense that something far more sinister was at play than a mere security officer overstepping his authority. The cell was a study in stark functionality, a bare durasteel cube with a single, unyielding bench bolted to the floor. The only source of light was a harsh, white glow emanating from a panel in the ceiling, casting long, stark shadows that danced and shifted with her movements. Anya paced the small space, her footsteps echoing in the oppressive silence. She ran through the encounter with Krell, replaying every word, every gesture, searching for a clue, a hidden motive. Why had he been so aggressive, so blatantly prejudiced? Was it simply blind hatred, or was there something more, something deeper, driving his actions? She recalled the way his eyes had lingered on her diplomatic credentials, the way he had dismissed them with a sneer. It wasn't just disrespect. It was a calculated disregard for the very laws he was sworn to uphold. A chill ran down her spine. What if Krell wasn't acting alone? What if he was part of a larger conspiracy, a network of individuals seeking to undermine the fragile peace that Anya had worked so tirelessly to maintain? She stopped pacing, her gaze fixed on the blank durasteel wall. The silence in the cell was unnerving, broken only by the faint hum of the ventilation system. She felt a sense of isolation, a feeling of being cut off from the vibrant life of the spaceport, from the vast network of alliances and treaties that spanned the galaxy. She was alone, vulnerable, at the mercy of forces she didn't fully understand. A sudden flicker of movement in the corner of her vision caught her attention. She turned, her heart pounding, but saw nothing. It was just a trick of the light, a phantom shadow playing on the wall. Or was it? She felt a prickle of paranoia, a sense that she was being watched, not just by the security cameras, but by something else, something unseen. She remembered the rumors whispered in hushed tones in the back alleys of spaceports, stories of clandestine organizations, of shadowy figures pulling the strings of interstellar politics. Was she now caught in their web? The silence was broken by the sharp click of the cell door unlocking. Anya tensed, her muscles coiled, ready for anything. The door slid open, revealing not Krell, but a tall, imposing figure in a dark, tailored suit. His face was obscured by the shadows of the corridor, but his presence radiated an aura of power and authority. He stepped into the cell, the door hissing shut behind him, leaving them alone in the oppressive space. "Anya Volkov," he said, his voice a low, resonant baritone that sent a shiver down her spine. "We've been expecting you." His words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Anya's mind raced, trying to decipher his intentions. Who was he? What did he want? "Who are you?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tremor of fear that ran through her. "And what do you mean, you've been expecting me?" He smiled, a thin, cruel smile that did nothing to reassure her. "My name is of no consequence," he said. "And as for your arrival, let's just say that certain individuals have been anticipating your interference." Interference? Anya's blood ran cold. Was this about her diplomatic mission? Was this about the treaty she was negotiating between the warring star systems of Xantus and Pyre? "What do you want?" she demanded, her voice rising. He took a step closer, his presence looming over her, his eyes glinting in the dim light. "We want you to understand," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper, "that some things are best left undisturbed. Some conflicts are meant to burn, to consume, to reshape the galaxy in their own image. And you, Anya Volkov, are standing in the way of that destiny." He paused, his gaze boring into hers. "We have ways of making you understand." He gestured towards the wall, and a section of the durasteel panel slid open, revealing a darkened chamber beyond. Anya's breath caught in her throat. She could feel the cold, oppressive energy emanating from the chamber, a sense of dread that sent a wave of nausea through her. "What is that?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "A tool," he replied, his smile widening. "A tool to help you see the error of your ways." He reached out, his hand closing around her arm, his grip like a vice. "Come," he said, his voice laced with menace. "Let us show you what happens to those who defy us." Anya struggled, her body tense, her mind reeling. She knew she was walking into a trap, a nightmare from which she might never escape. But she also knew that she couldn't back down. Not now. Not when the fate of entire star systems hung in the balance. As he pulled her towards the darkened chamber, she knew that she was entering a realm of shadows, a place where the lines between justice and corruption blurred, where the very fabric of reality was about to unravel. The door slid shut, plunging her into darkness. What will happen to Anya? Will she be able to escape this conspiracy? Find out in our next video, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. The stun baton crackled with malevolent energy, a blue arc of light that danced in the oppressive air of the security checkpoint. Anya's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the cold, metallic backdrop of the spaceport. Officer Krell, his face a mask of twisted arrogance, held the weapon aloft, his eyes glinting with a cruel anticipation that sent a shiver down Anya's spine. "You think you're so clever, don't you?" he snarled, his voice a low, guttural growl. "You think your fancy credentials will protect you? You're wrong." The air thrummed with a palpable tension, a silent promise of violence that hung heavy between them. Anya stood her ground, her body tense, her mind racing. She knew she couldn't allow Krell to provoke her, to goad her into a reaction that would justify his aggression. But the raw, unbridled hatred in his eyes, the sheer, visceral threat emanating from him was enough to make even the most seasoned diplomat falter. "Officer," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor of fear that threatened to betray her. "I have done nothing to warrant this." Krell laughed, a harsh, grating sound that echoed through the checkpoint. "You exist!" he spat, his words dripping with venom. "That's enough." He took a step closer, the stun baton humming with increased intensity. The crowd, a motley collection of spacers, merchants, and tourists, watched in stunned silence, their faces a mixture of fear and morbid fascination. Anya knew she was trapped, caught in a web of prejudice and unchecked power. She could feel the weight of their gaze, the silent judgment of those who were too afraid to intervene. "This is an abuse of power," she declared, her voice ringing with defiance. "I will not tolerate it." Krell's eyes narrowed, his face contorted with rage. "Tolerate?" he hissed. "You have no say in what you tolerate, alien. You're in my territory now." With a sudden, brutal motion, he lunged forward, the stun baton arcing through the air like a striking serpent. Anya reacted instinctively, her reflexes honed by years of training in the ancient Xylar martial art of Zer Talan. She sidestepped the blow, the baton whistling past her ear, the air crackling with its energy, but Krell was relentless. He spun around, his face flushed with anger, and swung the baton again, this time aiming for her side. Anya blocked the blow with her forearm, the force of the impact sending a jolt of pain through her body. She staggered back, her breath catching in her throat. Krell pressed his advantage, his movements becoming increasingly erratic, his attacks fueled by a blind, unreasoning rage. Anya knew she couldn't afford to be caught off guard. One wrong move, one moment of hesitation, and she would be at his mercy. She dodged, weaved, and blocked, her movements fluid and precise, her mind focused on survival. each near miss, each close call, sent a wave of adrenaline through her veins, heightening her senses, sharpening her instincts. The crowd watched, their silence broken only by the occasional gasp or murmur. They were witnessing a raw display of power, a brutal clash between authority and resistance. But their silence was a betrayal, a tacit approval of Krell's actions. Anya felt a surge of anger, a burning resentment towards those who stood by and did nothing. She was fighting not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been subjected to injustice, for everyone who had ever been silenced by fear. Krell's attacks grew more desperate, more reckless. He was losing control, his rage blinding him to the consequences of his actions. Anya saw an opening, a moment of vulnerability in his frenzied assault. She seized the opportunity, her movements swift and decisive. With a lightning-fast strike, she disarmed him, sending the stun baton flying across the checkpoint. Krell stumbled, his eyes wide with shock and disbelief. He looked at Anya, his face a mask of confusion and fear. He had underestimated her, had mistaken her calm demeanor for weakness. He had thought he could intimidate her, break her spirit with his brute force. But he was wrong. Anya was not a victim. She was a warrior, a diplomat, a symbol of resistance against oppression. "You have crossed a line, officer," she said, her voice ringing with a cold, clear authority. "You have abused your power, and you will pay for it." The crowd erupted in cheers, a wave of relief and admiration washing over them. They had witnessed a moment of defiance, a moment of triumph against injustice. But the conflict was far from over. Krell, his face flushed with rage and humiliation, lunged at Anya, his movements clumsy and desperate. He was a wounded animal, cornered and dangerous. Anya knew she had to stop him, to prevent him from causing further harm. But she also knew that she couldn't afford to underestimate him. He was desperate, unpredictable, and capable of anything. The air crackled with tension, the silence broken only by the sound of their ragged breaths. The fate of the checkpoint, the fate of Anya, hung in the balance. What will happen next? Will Anya be able to stop Krell before he causes further harm? Will the crowd finally find their voice and stand up against injustice? Don't miss the thrilling conclusion. Like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more electrifying stories of courage and resistance. Your support fuels our fight for justice. All right, let's craft a 2,000-word paragraph focused on Anya's predicament of ignorance of reputation, weaving in events to amplify audience sympathy, maintain the original content's core, and deliver a dramatic climax. Paragraph. The cold, sterile air of the interrogation room pressed against Anya's skin, a stark contrast to the warmth she remembered from her home world. Officer Krell's sneer, amplified by the harsh glare of the overhead lights, was a physical manifestation of the ignorance he clung to. He saw not a diplomat, not a peacemaker, but a mere alien, a convenient target for his prejudice. Anya's diplomatic credentials, the symbols of years of tireless work and dedication, lay discarded on the metal table, their intricate seals and holographic signatures meaningless to Krell's narrow worldview. He didn't know who she was, what she represented, the delicate balance of interstellar peace she maintained. And that ignorance, that arrogant dismissal of her achievements, cut deeper than any physical wound. She remembered the countless hours spent mediating disputes, the sleepless nights spent negotiating treaties, the unwavering belief in diplomacy that had driven her life's work. Each memory was a sharp contrast to the cold indifference in Krell's eyes. He saw her as a threat, a disruption, a nameless, faceless entity to be subdued. He didn't know about her childhood, the early years spent immersed in the history of her people, the countless stories of conflict and reconciliation that had instilled in her a deep commitment to peace. He didn't know about the sacrifices she had made, the personal costs she had endured, to to forge alliances and build bridges between warring factions. He didn't know about the quiet moments of despair, the doubts that whispered in her ear, the constant struggle to maintain hope in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles. The interrogation continued, Krell's questions laced with thinly veiled accusations, his tone dripping with contempt. Anya answered calmly, her voice steady, but inside, a storm raged. She felt a profound sense of isolation, a chilling realization that in this moment, she was utterly alone. No one knew her here. No one understood the weight of her responsibilities, the delicate threads of diplomacy she held in her hands. The room became a microcosm of the galaxy, a place where ignorance and prejudice threatened to unravel the fragile fabric of peace. Suddenly, the door to the interrogation room burst open, and a frantic security guard rushed in, his face pale and his eyes wide with fear. "Officer Krell," he stammered, his voice trembling. "You have to see this." Krell turned, his expression a mixture of annoyance and suspicion. "What is it?" he demanded. The guard held out a data pad, his hand shaking. It's the news feeds. They're all reporting Anya Volkov." Krell snatched the data pad, his eyes widening as he scrolled through the reports. Images of Anya flashed across the screen, holographic projections of her diplomatic addresses, footage of her mediating peace talks, testimonials from leaders across the galaxy. The headlines screamed, "Interstellar Peacemaker Detained. Diplomat Anya Volkov held without cause. Galaxy demands answers." De Krell's face drained of color, his arrogance replaced by a chilling realization of his colossal mistake. He had detained not just an alien, but a figure of immense influence, a symbol of hope for billions. The news feeds displayed the messages. The Galactic Senate was outraged, and the planet of Xylar was demanding an immediate release. The messages were coming in live and being shown to Krell. The messages were showing the respect she had earned. The messages were showing her compassion, her bravery, and her dedication to peace. The messages were showing the true Anya Volkov. The guard's whispers filled the room. "She's the one who negotiated the Xantus-Pyre Treaty, the one that averted a galactic war." Krell's jaw dropped. He had no idea. He had been so consumed by his own prejudice that he had blinded himself to the truth. Anya watched him, her expression a mixture of pity and resolve. She knew that Krell's ignorance was not just his own failing, but a symptom of a larger problem, a pervasive prejudice that threatened to undermine the very foundations of interstellar society. The realization of his mistake struck Krell with the force of a physical blow. He stumbled back, his eyes wide with panic, his face contorted with fear. He had made a grave error, an error that could have catastrophic consequences. The room was silent, the only sound the faint hum of the data pad, displaying the endless stream of news reports and diplomatic messages. Anya stood, her gaze unwavering, her presence radiating an aura of quiet strength. She knew that her ordeal was far from over, that the forces of prejudice and ignorance would continue to challenge her. But she also knew that she had the support of millions, the unwavering belief of those who understood the importance of her work. She stepped forward, her voice ringing with newfound authority. "Officer Krell," she said, her words echoing through the room, "you have made a terrible mistake, but your ignorance does not excuse your actions. It is time for you to learn, to understand the consequences of your prejudice. The dramatic climax of her identity being revealed, and the shock upon Krell, is a dramatic point in the story. Please show your support for Anya and like this story. All right, Let's craft a 2,000-word paragraph centered on Anya's principled defense, weaving in emotional appeals to captivate listeners and encourage them to comment and support her. Paragraph. The cold, unforgiving glare of the security checkpoint lights illuminated the stark reality of Anya's situation. Officer Krell, his face contorted in a mask of contempt, stood before her, the stun baton a symbol of his unchecked power. But Anya, despite the fear that gnawed at her edges, refused to yield. She would not be broken, not by his threats, not by his prejudice. The weight of her people's history, the countless generations who had endured oppression and injustice, fueled her resolve. She remembered the stories her grandmother told, tales of resilience and courage, of individuals who stood against tyranny, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Those stories, woven into the fabric of her being, echoed in her heart, urging her to fight. She wasn't just defending herself. She was defending the principles of justice and equality that formed the bedrock of her existence. Each insult, each accusation was a violation, not just of her person, but of the very values she held dear. She felt the sting of tears threatening to spill, but she blinked them back, refusing to give Krell the satisfaction of seeing her break. She would not let him see her fear, would not let him diminish her spirit. "You have no right to treat me this way," Anya declared, her voice ringing with a quiet strength that belied her inner turmoil. "I have done nothing wrong." Krell scoffed, his laughter a harsh, grating sound that echoed through the checkpoint. "Wrong! You're breathing, alien! That's wrong enough!" His words, laced with venom, were a deliberate attempt to wound, to break her spirit. But Anya refused to allow his hatred to penetrate her defenses. She remembered the countless hours spent mediating disputes, the delicate dance of diplomacy, the unwavering belief in the power of words to bridge divides. She would not resort to violence, not unless absolutely necessary. She would use her voice, her intellect, her unwavering commitment to justice as her weapons. "Your prejudice blinds you, officer," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor of anger that ran through her. "You see me not as an individual, but as a stereotype, a caricature of your own fears and biases." She felt the weight of the crowd's gaze, the silent judgment of those who watched, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and curiosity. She knew that her words were not just for Krell, but for everyone who stood by, for everyone who allowed prejudice to fester. She was speaking for the voiceless, for the marginalized, for all those who had been silenced by fear and hatred. Krell's face flushed with anger, his eyes narrowed, his grip on the stun baton tightening. "You dare lecture me!" he hissed, his voice trembling with rage. "You dare question my authority!" He lunged forward, the stun baton arcing through the air, a symbol of his desperate attempt to assert control. Anya moved with a speed and agility that surprised even herself, her reflexes honed by years of training in the ancient Xylar martial art of Zertalin. She dodged the blow, the baton whistling past her ear, the air crackling with its energy. She felt a surge of adrenaline, a primal instinct to survive, to defend herself against this unwarranted aggression. But she also felt a deep sense of sorrow, a profound sadness for the man who stood before her, consumed by hatred, blinded by prejudice. She wanted to reach him, to break through the wall of ignorance that surrounded him, to show him the humanity that he refused to see. But she knew that words alone would not suffice. He had chosen violence, and she would meet him on his own terms. Anya disarmed Krell, sending the baton clattering to the floor. She did not strike him, but she held him with a grip that showed her strength. "I will not be treated this way," she said, her voice filled with a determination that shook the room. "I am a diplomat, and I demand to be treated with respect." She had made her point. She was not weak. She would not be intimidated. and she would not be silenced. She had stood her ground, had defended her principles, had shown the world that even in the face of overwhelming odds, justice could prevail. She looked at the crowd, her gaze sweeping across their faces, searching for a spark of understanding, a flicker of empathy. She saw fear, but she also saw a glimmer of hope, a sense of admiration for her courage. She knew that her actions had planted a seed of resistance that would grow and flourish, that would inspire others to stand up against injustice. She felt a wave of exhaustion wash over her, the emotional toll of the confrontation weighing heavily on her shoulders. But she also felt a sense of peace, a quiet satisfaction in knowing that she had done what was right. He had defended her principles, had stood against oppression, had shown the world that even a single voice could make a difference. What do you think about Anya's courage? Please comment to encourage her. All right, let's craft a 2,000-word paragraph centered on Anya's principled defense, weaving in emotional appeals to captivate listeners and encourage them to comment and support her. Paragraph. The cold, unforgiving glare of the security checkpoint lights illuminated the stark reality of Anya's situation. Officer Krell, his face contorted in a mask of contempt, stood before her, the stun baton a symbol of his unchecked power. But Anya, despite the fear that gnawed at her edges, refused to yield. She would not be broken. Not by his threats, not by his prejudice. The weight of her people's history, the countless generations who had endured oppression and injustice, fueled her resolve. She remembered the stories her grandmother told, tales of resilience and courage, of individuals who stood against tyranny, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Those stories, woven into the fabric of her being, echoed in her heart, urging her to fight. She wasn't just defending herself. She was defending the principles of justice and equality that formed the bedrock of her existence. Each insult, each accusation was a violation, not just of her person, but of the very values she held dear. She felt the sting of tears threatening to spill, but she blinked them back, refusing to give Krell the satisfaction of seeing her break. She would not let him see her fear, would not let him diminish her spirit. "You have no right to treat me this way," Anya declared, her voice ringing with a quiet strength that belied her inner turmoil. "I have done nothing wrong." Krell scoffed, his laughter a harsh, grating sound that echoed through the checkpoint. "Wrong? You're breathing, alien. That's wrong enough." His words, laced with venom, were a deliberate attempt to wound, to break her spirit. But Anya refused to allow his hatred to penetrate her defenses. She remembered the countless hours spent mediating disputes, the delicate dance of diplomacy, the unwavering belief in the power of words to bridge divides. She would not resort to violence, not unless absolutely necessary. She would use her voice, her intellect, her unwavering commitment to justice as her weapons. "Your prejudice blinds you, officer," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor of anger that ran through her. "You see me not as an individual, but as a stereotype, a caricature of your own fears and biases." She felt the weight of the crowd's gaze, the silent judgment of those who watched, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and curiosity. She knew that her words were not just for Krell, but for everyone who stood by, for everyone who allowed prejudice to fester. She was speaking for the voiceless, for the marginalized, for all those who had been silenced by fear and hatred. Krell's face flushed with anger, his eyes narrowed, his grip on the stun baton tightening. "You dare lecture me?" he hissed, his voice trembling with rage. "You dare question my authority?" He lunged forward, the stun baton arcing through the air, a symbol of his desperate attempt to assert control. Anya moved with a speed and agility that surprised even herself, her reflexes honed by years of training in the ancient Xyler martial art of Zertalan. She dodged the blow, the baton whistling past her ear, the air crackling with its energy. She felt a surge of adrenaline, a primal instinct to survive, to defend herself against this unwarranted aggression. But she also felt a deep sense of sorrow, a profound sadness for the man who stood before her, consumed by hatred, blinded by prejudice. She wanted to reach him, to break through the wall of ignorance that surrounded him, to show him the humanity that he refused to see. But she knew that words alone would not suffice. He had chosen violence, and she would meet him on his own terms. Anya disarmed Krell, sending the baton clattering to the floor. She did not strike him, but she held him with a grip that showed her strength. "I will not be treated this way," she said, her voice filled with a determination that shook the room. "I am a diplomat, and I demand to be treated with respect." She had made her point. She was not weak, she would not be intimidated, and she would not be silenced. She had stood her ground, had defended her principles, had shown the world that even in the face of overwhelming odds, justice could prevail. She looked at the crowd, her gaze sweeping across their faces, searching for a spark of understanding, a flicker of empathy. She saw fear, but she also saw a glimmer of hope, a sense of admiration for her courage. She knew that her actions had planted a seed of resistance that would grow and flourish, that would inspire others to stand up against injustice. She felt a wave of exhaustion wash over her, the emotional toll of the confrontation weighing heavily on her shoulders. But she also felt a sense of peace, a quiet satisfaction in knowing that she had done what was right. She had defended her principles, had stood against oppression, had shown the world that even a single voice could make a difference. What do you think about Anya's courage? Please comment to encourage her. The marketplace erupted in a cacophony of noise, a symphony of gasps, shouts, and the whirring of 1,000 drones. Anya, her heart pounding in her chest, watched as Officer Krell stumbled back, his face contorted in a mixture of shock and rage. The stun baton, a symbol of his authority, lay discarded on the durasteel floor, its blue arc of energy extinguished. The crowd, a moment ago passive observers, now surged forward, their voices a torrent of indignation. Anya felt a wave of relief wash over her, a sense of solidarity with these strangers who had witnessed the injustice and chosen to speak out. But she also felt a surge of fear, a chilling awareness of the volatile situation she was in. The drones, those ubiquitous eyes of Neo-Alexandria, swarmed around her, their lenses capturing every detail of the unfolding drama. The footage would be broadcast across the spaceport, across the planet, across the galaxy. Anya, the diplomat, the peacemaker, would become a symbol of resistance, a rallying cry against prejudice and abuse of power. She looked at the faces in the crowd, a kaleidoscope of emotions reflected in their eyes. There was anger, yes, but also fear, uncertainty, and a desperate yearning for justice. Anya knew that this moment, this spontaneous outpouring of support, was fragile, fleeting. It could easily dissipate, swallowed by the apathy and indifference that so often plagued interstellar society. She had to seize this opportunity, to channel the raw energy of the crowd into something meaningful, something lasting. But what could she do? She was a diplomat, not a revolutionary. Her training was in negotiation, not in inciting rebellion. Yet, as she looked at the faces around her, she felt a stirring within her, a primal instinct to fight, to protect, to lead. Suddenly, a young Xylar girl, her eyes wide with fear and admiration, pushed her way through the crowd and reached for Anya's hand. "You were so brave," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You stood up to him." Anya looked down at the girl, her heart swelling with a mixture of compassion and determination. This was why she fought, why she risked everything. It was for the children, for the future, for the hope of a galaxy where prejudice and hatred would be replaced by understanding and empathy. Anya squeezed the girl's hand, a silent promise of protection. Then she turned to face the crowd, her voice ringing with newfound authority. "Thank you," she said, her words echoing through the marketplace. "Thank you for standing with me. But this is not just about me. It's about all of us. It's about a system that allows prejudice to fester, that empowers those who abuse their authority. We cannot stand idly by and watch as injustice prevails." She felt the crowd's energy surge, their emotions coalescing into a unified force. The drones, those silent witnesses, amplified her voice, broadcasting her words across the spaceport, across the network, into the very heart of the security hub. Krell, his face pale and drawn, watched from the edge of the crowd, his eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. He had underestimated Anya, had mistaken her calm demeanor for weakness. He had thought he could silence her, intimidate her into submission, but he was wrong. She was not a victim. She was a catalyst, a spark that ignited the dormant fire of resistance. As Anya spoke, her words weaving a tapestry of hope and defiance, she felt a shift within her, a transformation. The diplomat, the peacemaker, was evolving, becoming something more, something powerful. She was becoming a leader, a symbol of hope in a galaxy on the brink of chaos. But the situation was far from resolved. The security hub was on high alert. Krell's superiors were no doubt scrambling to contain the damage, to silence the growing dissent. Anya knew that she and the crowd were vulnerable, exposed. They needed to move, to find a safe haven, to organize their resistance. But where could they go? The spaceport was a labyrinth of security checkpoints and surveillance drones, every corner monitored, every movement tracked. Anya looked at the young Xylar girl, her eyes filled with fear and determination. She remembered the stories her grandmother told, tales of hidden passages and secret sanctuaries, of networks of resistance that thrived in the shadows. Perhaps, she thought, there was a way out. A path to freedom hidden in the very heart of the spaceport. But time was running out. Krell, regaining his composure, was gesturing to a group of heavily armed security officers, their faces grim and determined. They were coming for her, for the crowd, for the spark of resistance that she had ignited. Anya made the next choice. "We cannot stay here," she said, and then made a new direction away from the conflict for the short term to prepare and gather people. The crowd began to follow her, and they made way into the deeper parts of the station, parts normally unseen, parts used for the underworkings of the station itself. Anya knew that their escape would be a daring one with high stakes. She would lead them to a place that could be a temporary holdout. Anya would become something of a rebel leader for the people of Neo-Alexandria and for all those suffering. The steel doors of the security hub slammed shut behind Anya, the echoing clang a stark punctuation mark on the chaos she had left behind. Officer Krell, his face now a mask of fear and desperation, was being dragged away by his own colleagues, his authority shattered, his reputation in tatters. But Anya knew that accountability was more than just a single officer's downfall. It was about dismantling the system that allowed such abuse to flourish, about ensuring that justice prevailed not just in this moment, but for all time. She stood in the dimly lit corridor, the echoes of the crowd's cheers still ringing in her ears, a bittersweet reminder of the fragile victory she had won. The weight of her responsibilities settled on her shoulders, heavy and unyielding. She was no longer just a diplomat. She was a symbol, a beacon of hope in a galaxy teetering on the edge of despair. The air thrummed with tension, the silence broken only by the faint hum of the security systems. Anya knew that Krell's superiors would not take this incident lightly. They would seek to silence her, to discredit her, to erase the spark of resistance she had ignited. She was a threat to their power, to the status quo they so desperately clung to. She felt a surge of fear, a chilling awareness of the forces arrayed against her. But she also felt a surge of determination, a burning resolve to see this through, to fight for the principles she held dear. She would not be intimidated. She would not be silenced. She would hold them accountable, not just for Krell's actions, but for the systemic injustice that had allowed him to thrive. As she turned to leave, a figure emerged from the shadows, a woman with piercing eyes and a determined expression. It was Kai, the security guard who had risked everything to help her. "They're trying to spin the narrative," he said, his voice low and urgent. "They're claiming you attacked Officer Krell, that you incited a riot." Anya's heart sank. She knew they would try to twist the truth, to paint her as the aggressor. But she had underestimated their desperation. "We have to counteract their propaganda," she said, her mind racing. "We need to get the truth out there, to show the galaxy what really happened." Kai nodded, his eyes filled with determination. "I can access the security network," he said. "I can release the drone footage, the eyewitness accounts, the truth." Anya felt a flicker of hope. With Kai's help, they could expose the corruption within the security forces. They could rally support for their cause. But they were not alone. As they made their way to a hidden access point, they were joined by a group of individuals, spacers, merchants, even a few off-duty security personnel, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and defiance. They had seen what had happened. They had heard Anya's words, and they had chosen to stand with her. They were a motley crew, a ragtag alliance of rebels, but their determination was unwavering. They were tired of the corruption, tired of the injustice, tired of being silenced. They were ready to fight. As Kai accessed the security network, Anya addressed the group, her voice ringing with newfound confidence. "We are not criminals," she said. "We are not rebels. We are citizens, demanding justice, demanding accountability. We will not be silenced. We will not be ignored. We will expose the truth, and we will hold those responsible accountable." Her words resonated with the crowd, their voices rising in a chorus of agreement. They were no longer just observers. They were participants, active agents in the fight for justice. The drone footage, the eyewitness accounts, the raw, unfiltered truth flooded the network, broadcasting across Neo-Alexandria, across the planet, across the galaxy. The security hub's carefully crafted narrative crumbled, exposed as a web of lies and deceit. The galaxy watched, their emotions a mixture of shock, anger, and admiration. Anya Volkov, the diplomat, the peacemaker, had become a symbol of resistance, a rallying cry against oppression. But the backlash was swift and brutal. Krell's superiors, their power threatened, unleashed their forces, deploying heavily armed security teams to quell the uprising. They sought to silence Anya, to erase her influence, to restore their control. But the people of Neo-Alexandria, emboldened by Anya's courage, refused to back down. They took to the streets, their voices echoing through the spaceport, their numbers growing with each passing hour. The city was on the verge of eruption, a powder keg waiting for a spark. Anya and her ragtag alliance found themselves trapped, cornered in a hidden maintenance tunnel, the security forces closing in. They were outnumbered, outgunned, facing overwhelming odds. But they were not without allies. News of their resistance had spread beyond Neo-Alexandria. reaching the ears of Anya's diplomatic allies, her colleagues, her friends. They were outraged by the treatment she had received, and they were determined to help. A fleet of diplomatic vessels, their flags flying high, descended upon Neo-Alexandria, their presence a powerful statement of support. They demanded Anya's release. They condemned the security forces' actions. They threatened sanctions if justice was not served. The galaxy was watching, the world was judging, and the security hub's carefully constructed facade was crumbling. But Krell's superior, General Vorin, a man known for his ruthlessness, decided to take a drastic measure. He activated a planetary shield, cutting off Neo-Alexandria from all outside communication and transport. He then sent a message to Anya, a chilling ultimatum: surrender, or he would unleash a devastating energy pulse that would cripple the entire spaceport. Anya was faced with an impossible choice: surrender and condemn the people of Neo-Alexandria to oppression, resist, and risk unleashing a catastrophe. She felt the weight of the galaxy on her shoulders, the hopes and fears of millions resting on her decision. She looked at Kai, at the faces of her ragtag alliance, at the young Xylar girl who had inspired her courage. She knew what she had to do. She sent a message back to Vorin, a message of defiance and hope. She would not surrender. She would not be intimidated. She would fight for justice, for freedom, for the future of Neo-Alexandria. She rallied her alliance. She inspired the people. She prepared for the final stand. They would not go quietly. They would not be silenced. They would fight for their right to exist. The final confrontation was a chaotic, desperate struggle, a clash between tyranny and resistance, between fear and hope. Anya, armed with nothing but her courage and her convictions, led the charge, her voice ringing out through the spaceport, inspiring her allies, defying her enemies. The security forces, their ranks wavering, their morale shattered, faced a force they could not comprehend, a force fueled by the unwavering belief in justice. In the end, it was not weapons or technology that prevailed, but the power of unity, the strength of conviction, the unwavering belief in the human spirit. The planetary shield was deactivated, the energy pulse was averted, and General Vorin was brought to justice. Anya Volkov, the diplomat, the peacemaker, the rebel leader, had emerged victorious, not by force, but by the power of her voice, the strength of her character, the unwavering belief in the principles she held dear. The people of Neo-Alexandria celebrated, their voices echoing through the spaceport, a chorus of joy and gratitude. Anya stood amidst them, her heart filled with a profound sense of peace. She had held them accountable. She had dismantled the system. She had shown the galaxy that even in the face of overwhelming odds, justice could prevail. What do you think? Comment, like, and follow for more stories. The neon-drenched streets of Neo-Alexandria hummed with a nervous energy, a palpable tension that crackled in the air like static. Anya, her face etched with exhaustion, but her eyes blazing with unwavering resolve, stood amidst the throngs of citizens, their faces a tapestry of hope and fear. The security hub, once a symbol of oppressive authority, now stood as a stark reminder of the battle fought and won. But the victory, as Anya knew too well, was fragile. It was a single skirmish in a much larger war, a war against the insidious forces of prejudice and corruption that threatened to engulf the galaxy. She had become a symbol, a beacon of resistance, a lightning rod for those who dared to dream of a better future. But symbols, she knew, were easily tarnished, easily twisted, and the forces she had challenged would not rest until they had extinguished her light. The weight of her newfound role pressed down on her, heavy and unyielding. She was no longer just a diplomat, a negotiator, a peacemaker. She was a leader, a rebel, a figurehead for a movement that was rapidly gaining momentum. But she was also a target, a pariah, a threat to the established order. She felt the eyes of the galaxy upon her, the hopes and fears of millions weighing on her every decision. She was a symbol of justice, and this symbol would be tested. As she navigated the crowded streets, Anya felt a sense of unease, a prickling sensation that she was being watched. It wasn't the surveillance drones, those ubiquitous eyes of the spaceport, that bothered her. It was something else, something more subtle, more insidious. She felt a presence, a shadow lurking in the periphery, a silent observer tracking her every move. She dismissed it as paranoia, the lingering effects of the intense confrontation with Krell and his superiors. But the feeling persisted, growing stronger with each passing moment. Suddenly, a young boy, no older than 10, darted through the crowd, his eyes wide with fear. He pressed a small data chip into Anya's hand, his touch fleeting, his expression urgent. "They're coming," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the din of the marketplace. "They want to erase you." Before Anya could react, the boy vanished, swallowed by the sea of faces. She clenched the data chip in her fist, her heart pounding in her chest. Erase her? What did he mean? Was this a threat, a warning, or something else entirely? She found a secluded alleyway, a brief respite from the prying eyes of the crowd, and inserted the data chip into her communicator. The screen flickered to life, displaying a fragmented message, a series of distorted images and cryptic symbols. It was a warning, a desperate plea for help, a glimpse into a conspiracy that ran deeper than she could have imagined. The message spoke of a shadowy organization, a clandestine network of individuals who sought to manipulate the galaxy, to control its destiny. They were the architects of prejudice, the puppeteers of corruption, the silent manipulators who pulled the strings of interstellar politics. And they had her in their sights. Anya's blood ran cold. She was not just a symbol of resistance. She was a target, a pawn in a much larger game. The forces she had challenged were not just corrupt security officers. They were a network of power brokers, a cabal of influence peddlers who operated in the shadows, their reach extending to the highest levels of government. She had stumbled upon something far more dangerous than she could have ever imagined, a conspiracy that threatened to unravel the very fabric of interstellar society. She needed to find allies, to gather information, to expose the truth. But she was alone, isolated, a fugitive in her own city. She couldn't trust the security forces, and she didn't know who she could trust among the populace. Then, a familiar voice echoed from the shadows. "You're not alone, Anya." Kai stepped into the alleyway, his face grim, but his eyes filled with unwavering loyalty. "We're in this together." Anya felt a surge of relief, a sense of gratitude for the unwavering support of her friend. "We need to find out who these people are," she said, her voice urgent. "We need to expose their network, to dismantle their power." Kai nodded, his expression determined. "I have contacts," he said. "People who operate in the shadows, who know the secrets of the city. We can find them. We can learn their secrets." They ventured into the underbelly of Neo-Alexandria, a labyrinth of hidden tunnels and clandestine meeting places, a world of whispers and shadows. They met with informants, hackers and smugglers, individuals who lived on the fringes of society who knew the city's secrets better than anyone. They learned of a hidden network, a group known as the Silent Syndicate, a cabal of influential figures who controlled the flow of information, manipulated markets, and orchestrated political events. They were the architects of chaos, the engineers of discord, the masters of manipulation. As they delved deeper into the conspiracy, Anya and Kai discovered a chilling truth. The Silent Syndicate was not just a network of individuals. It was a state of mind, a philosophy of control, a belief that the galaxy was theirs to command. They were not just corrupt officials. They were ideologues, fanatics, who believed in their own superiority, who saw themselves as the rightful rulers of the galaxy. They were the embodiment of everything Anya had fought against, the very antithesis of the ideals she held dear. The situation grew increasingly desperate. The Silent Syndicate, aware of Anya's investigation, unleashed their forces, deploying assassins, saboteurs, and propaganda machines to silence her. They sought to discredit her, to destroy her reputation, to erase her from the history books. They painted her as a radical, a terrorist, a threat to interstellar security. They manipulated the news feeds, spreading lies and disinformation, turning public opinion against her. Anya and Kai found themselves hunted, pursued by relentless enemies, their every move tracked, their every communication intercepted. They were trapped, cornered, facing overwhelming odds. But they refused to give up. They would not be silenced. They would not be erased. They would fight for the truth, for justice, for the future of the galaxy. They found a hidden sanctuary, a forgotten outpost in the depths of the spaceport, a place where they could regroup, strategize, and prepare for the final confrontation. They gathered allies, individuals who believed in their cause, who were willing to risk everything to expose the Silent Syndicate. They were a ragtag army, a motley crew of rebels, but their determination was unwavering. Anya knew that the final battle would not be fought with weapons or technology. It would be fought with information, with truth, with the power of the people. They would expose the Silent Syndicate. They would reveal their secrets. They would dismantle their network. They would use the very tools of manipulation against them, turning their propaganda machines against them, broadcasting the truth across the galaxy. The climax arrived, a chaotic, desperate struggle for control of the narrative. Anya and her allies infiltrated the Silent Syndicate's headquarters, a hidden fortress in the heart of Neo-Alexandria. They hacked into their servers, accessed their databases, and exposed their secrets to the world. They broadcast their evidence, their testimonies, their revelations across every network, every channel, every platform. The galaxy watched, their emotions a whirlwind of shock, anger, and disbelief. The Silent Syndicate's carefully constructed facade crumbled, their power shattered, their influence destroyed. The people rose up, demanding justice, demanding accountability, demanding a new era of transparency and equality. Anya Volkov, the symbol of justice, had become a symbol of revolution. The Silent Syndicate was brought to justice, their members exposed, their networks dismantled, their power stripped away. Anya stood amidst the cheering crowds, her heart filled with a profound sense of hope. She had faced the darkness, she had confronted the shadows, she had emerged victorious. She had shown the galaxy that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the truth could prevail. What do you think? Comment, like, and follow for more stories of resistance and hope. The cobbled streets of the lower sector buzzed with a nervous energy, a palpable tension that hung in the air like a storm cloud. Anya, her face illuminated by the flickering neon signs, felt the weight of the city's hopes and fears pressing down on her. The security hub's oppressive shadow loomed in the distance, a constant reminder of the fight ahead. The community, a patchwork of spacers, merchants, and laborers, had rallied behind her, their support a fragile shield against the forces that sought to silence her. They were a diverse lot, united by a shared sense of injustice, a collective yearning for a better future. But their unity was precarious, their resolve untested. Anya knew she had to solidify their bond, to transform them from a disparate group of individuals into a cohesive force for change. The whispers started as she walked, a low hum of voices that followed her through the narrow alleyways. "She's one of us," a gruff voice declared. "She fights for the little guy," a woman's voice echoed. Anya felt a surge of warmth, a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in a long time. She had found her community, her tribe, her family. But she also knew that this support was conditional, dependent on her ability to deliver on her promises. She had become a symbol, a lightning rod for their hopes and dreams, and she couldn't afford to let them down. She gathered them in a hidden courtyard, a sanctuary tucked away from the prying eyes of the surveillance drones. The faces that stared back at her were a mixture of hope, fear, and determination. They were the forgotten, the marginalized, the ones who had been pushed to the fringes of society. They were the heart and soul of Neo-Alexandria, and they were ready to fight for their future. Anya's voice, amplified by a makeshift speaker, echoed through the courtyard, her words weaving a tapestry of hope and defiance. "We are not victims," she declared, her voice ringing with newfound confidence. "We are not powerless. We are the architects of our own destiny. We are the community, and we will not be silenced." The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices a chorus of defiance. They were no longer just bystanders. They were participants, active agents in the fight for justice. Anya's words had ignited a spark, a fire of resistance that burned brightly in their hearts. But the fire needed fuel. It needed direction. It needed a leader. And Anya, despite her doubts and fears, was ready to step into that role. She organized them. She trained them. She empowered them. She taught them how to resist oppression, how to expose corruption, how to amplify their voices. She turned them into a network of resistance, a force that could challenge the very foundations of the security hub's power. She reminded them of their shared humanity, their common struggle, their collective strength. "We are not alone," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "We are a community, and we will stand together, united against injustice." But the forces arrayed against them were formidable. The security hub, reeling from the public outcry, unleashed a wave of repression, deploying heavily armed patrols to quell the growing dissent. They sought to intimidate, to silence, to crush the spirit of resistance. But the community, emboldened by Anya's leadership, refused to back down. They met force with defiance, fear with courage, oppression with resistance. The streets of the lower sector became a battleground, a chaotic clash between tyranny and resistance. Anya, her face streaked with grime and sweat, led the charge, her voice ringing out through the chaos, inspiring her allies, defying her enemies. She was no longer just a diplomat, a peacemaker. She was a warrior, a leader, a symbol of hope in a city on the brink of chaos. The fighting was fierce, the odds stacked against them. But the community, fueled by their unwavering belief in justice, refused to yield. They fought with a ferocity born of desperation, a determination to reclaim their city, their lives, their future. They used their knowledge of the streets, their ingenuity, their sheer willpower to outmaneuver and outsmart the security forces. They turned the city into a maze, a labyrinth of hidden passages and secret sanctuaries, a place where the oppressed could find refuge and the resistance could thrive. Anya, despite her exhaustion and her injuries, refused to give up. She was the heart of the resistance, the embodiment of their hopes and dreams. She pushed herself beyond her limits, inspiring her allies, defying her enemies, leading the charge against the forces of oppression. She was a beacon of light in the darkness, a symbol of hope in a city shrouded in fear. But the security forces, relentless and ruthless, closed in, their numbers overwhelming, their firepower devastating. Anya and her allies found themselves trapped, cornered in a hidden warehouse, the security forces closing in for the kill. They were outnumbered, outgunned, facing overwhelming odds. But they refused to surrender. They would fight to the end. They would die on their feet. They would never give up. Just as the security forces were about to breach the warehouse, a fleet of civilian transports descended from the sky, their lights flashing, their engines roaring. They were the reinforcements, the cavalry, the community's answer to the security hub's oppression. They were the spacers, the merchants, the laborers from the neighboring sectors who had heard the call for help and answered with unwavering loyalty. The security forces, caught off guard, their ranks wavering, their morale shattered, faced a force they could not comprehend, a force fueled by the unwavering belief in community. The civilian transports, their cargo holds filled with supplies and reinforcements, landed in the warehouse district, their doors opening to reveal a wave of support, a tide of humanity that surged forward, overwhelming the security forces. The battle turned, the tide shifting in favor of the community. The security forces, outnumbered and outmaneuvered, retreated, their authority shattered, their power diminished. The community, their voices echoing through the streets, their spirits soaring, reclaimed their city, their lives, their future. Anya, her face illuminated by the lights of the transports, her heart filled with a profound sense of gratitude, watched as the community celebrated their victory. She had shown them the power of unity, the strength of their collective voice, the unwavering belief in justice. She had shown them that they were not alone, that they were a community, and that they could overcome any challenge. The security hub, their power diminished, their reputation tarnished, was forced to negotiate, to acknowledge the community's demands, to implement reforms that would ensure justice and equality for all. Anya, her voice ringing with newfound authority, led the negotiations, her words weaving a tapestry of hope and reconciliation. The community, their voices amplified, their demands heard, emerged victorious, their future secured. They had shown the galaxy that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the power of community could prevail. Anya Volkov, the symbol of justice, had become the architect of a new era, a beacon of hope for a city and a galaxy yearning for change. How does this story make you feel? Comment below. Like and follow for more stories of community, resistance, and hope. The dawn broke over Neo-Alexandria, painting the sky in hues of soft pink and gold, a stark contrast to the tumultuous night that had just passed. Anya stood on the rooftop of a reclaimed community center, the city stretching out before her, a tapestry of lights and shadows. The air was crisp, clean, filled with a sense of renewal, a promise of a brighter future. The scars of the battle were still visible. The broken windows, the damaged facades, the lingering scent of smoke. But there was also a sense of resilience, a spirit of hope that permeated the city, a testament to the community's unwavering belief in justice. Anya's heart swelled with a profound sense of peace. She had faced the darkness, she had confronted the shadows, and she had emerged victorious. She had shown the galaxy that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the power of the human spirit could prevail. She had become an inspiration, a symbol of hope, a testament to the transformative power of courage and conviction. But her journey was far from over. She knew that the fight for justice was a continuous struggle, a never-ending quest for a better world. She looked at the faces of the community members gathered below, their eyes filled with admiration and gratitude. They had seen her courage. They had witnessed her resilience. They had felt her unwavering belief in their potential. They had been inspired by her example, empowered by her leadership, transformed by her vision. Anya's actions had planted a seed of hope that would grow and flourish, that would inspire generations to come. She stepped forward, her voice ringing with newfound authority, her words echoing through the courtyard. "We have faced adversity," she began, her gaze sweeping across the crowd. "We have confronted injustice. We have overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges. But we have not done it alone. We have done it together, as a community, as a family, as a force for change." Her words resonated with the crowd, their voices rising in a chorus of agreement. They had learned the power of unity, the strength of their collective voice, the transformative potential of their shared humanity. They had learned that they were not powerless, that they were not victims, that they were the architects of their own destiny. "We have shown the galaxy," Anya continued, her voice filled with conviction, "that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the human spirit can prevail. We have shown them that justice is not a privilege, but a right that belongs to every citizen, every individual, every sentient being." She paused, her gaze lingering on the faces of the children, their eyes shining with hope and wonder. They were the future, the inheritors of the world they were building. They were the ones who would carry the torch of justice, who would ensure that the lessons learned from their struggle would not be forgotten. "We have a responsibility," Anya declared, her voice ringing with newfound authority, "to ensure that the world we leave behind is a world worthy of their dreams, a world where justice prevails, where equality reigns, where hope flourishes." Her words echoed through the courtyard, a promise, a commitment, a call to action. The community, their hearts filled with a sense of purpose, their spirits soaring with hope, pledged their unwavering support. They would continue the fight. They would carry the torch. They would build a better future. Anya looked at the city, the reclaimed community center, the faces of the people. She thought of her journey, the challenges she had faced, the lessons she had learned. She had started as a diplomat, a peacemaker, a negotiator, but she had become something more, something powerful, something transformative. She had become a symbol, a leader, a beacon of hope. She had learned that true power did not come from authority or force, but from courage and conviction, from empathy and compassion, from the unwavering belief in the potential of humanity. She had learned that true leadership was not about control or dominance, but about empowerment and inspiration, about lifting others up, about creating a world where everyone could thrive. She had learned that justice was not a destination, but a journey, a continuous struggle, a never-ending quest for a better world. She had learned that hope was not a passive emotion, but an active force, a catalyst for change, a beacon that guided them through the darkness. And she had learned that community was not just a group of individuals, but a collective force, a network of support, a foundation for resilience. It was the strength that allowed them to overcome adversity, the unity that empowered them to achieve the impossible, the love that bound them together as a family. Anya's story, her journey, her transformation, was a testament to the power of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, We can choose courage over fear, hope over despair, justice over oppression. We can choose to be the architects of our own destiny, the builders of a better world. Advice from the story. Stand up for what you believe in. Even when faced with overwhelming opposition, never compromise your principles. Embrace community. Find your tribe, your support system, and work together to achieve common goals. Be a beacon of hope. Inspire others with your courage and conviction, and show them that change is possible. Never give up. Even when faced with setbacks and challenges, persevere and never lose sight of your vision. Empower others. Share your knowledge, your skills, and your resources, and help others to reach their full potential. Seek justice. Fight against oppression and inequality, and strive to create a world where everyone has equal opportunities. Be the change you want to see. Don't wait for others to act. Take initiative and make a difference in your own life and in the lives of others. Use your voice. Do not be afraid to speak up against injustice. Believe in the power of unity. Together, we can overcome any challenge. Hope is an action. Do not simply hope for change, work for it. Anya's journey was a reminder that we all have the power to make a difference, to create a better world, to inspire hope. Please like this story and comment to show your support for Anya and her community. Subscribe to our channel to receive more inspiring stories of courage, resilience, and hope. We appreciate your support and hope to see you again soon.